how do you do when you are taking a class of a technique or a way of dancing Zouk? There's not necessarily the way that you do. Should you do how the teacher is doing in the class and then decide if you like it or not?
If you have done the studies and you understand your body in a way that you can tell me and say, look, this is what works best for my body, I'm just going to go like, cool. Okay, now let's see how that integrates with the rest of your dancing.
In the end of the day, the different methodologies and the different ways of teaching, I think are all trying to convey something similar.
What is correct? What is right? What is Brazilian Zouk? There's hundreds. There's no two laterais that look the same or two basic steps that look the same. But in the end of the day, we're a great example of this. You know our history here. We have different approaches to so many things, but the end goal is the same.
As a teacher, over time, I developed my sight to look or to separate two things. There is how something looks like, and there is how something feels like.
To me, it's a big turn off when teachers go into explaining something or go into correcting somebody in class and saying, that's wrong, this is right. A teacher answer should be trying to understand where the question is coming from, trying to understand the experience that that student is having and why the question came in the first place. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode. My name is Alisson Sanji, and today we have Gui Prada. Hello
everybody, welcome back to a more special episode at Alisson's apartments.
Today we're going to be doing the same thing as we did in the previous ones, which is to read some of the questions in our ZoukNerds Facebook group and share our experience as if this was a Q&A, a one-on-one from us to you. So what is today's question, Gui?
Today, our question comes from one of our top contributors here at ZoukNerds, Emily Blumenthal. And it's actually a long post.
Yes.
That she talks about different teachers teaching Zouk differently. And a lot of her question is about how do you do when you are in a class, taking a class of a technique or a way of dancing Zouk? There's not necessarily the way that you do. Should you do what the teacher is doing, how the teacher is doing in the class, and then decide if you like it or not? So there's several aspects that she approaches here. We're going to focus on the very last question that she approaches the teachers.
And the whole group, basically.
Teachers, Emily asks, how would you feel if a student said something like, I know you teach to do this X way, but I have concluded that's not the right fit for me, at least as a default. So I'm going to stick with Y as my default, but I'd love to get your feedback on other aspects of my dancing. How would you feel as if the student comes to you and says something like this?
Totally fine. I mean, like, if you have done the studies and you understand your body in a way that you can tell me and say, look, this is what works best for my body, I'm just going to go like, cool. Okay, now let's see how that integrates with the rest of your dancing. And then if I see some contradicting things that I might want to share my opinion, I'm just going to ask and say, hey, I know you told me this and you want to continue doing this, but would you mind if I share some of my opinion on how this is affecting other parts of your dancing? And then once again, you make the decision. You go ahead with your own dancing choices and may continue, consider, or completely not even take note of what I say. And that's totally fine. I mean, like, if as a teacher you take anything personal in that situation, then you are going to have a lot of problem teaching.
Yeah, I think it's important to detach yourself from your way. I'm talking to the teachers here, right? And to the dancers too. Detach yourself a little bit from your way in the sense of this is the way. Yeah, we're not Mandalorians. This might not be the way. And it's important that we remain open in some way. So I have actually had stuff not exactly like this, because I think this is a very particular and a very clear example. But versions of this have come to me. For example, very recently in Rio, there was actually a private lesson where the student said, I want to show you how I do and how I explain this thing. and I see you doing something similar, and I wanted to see if that makes sense to you or not. And then she went ahead, explained how she does the thing. And then she said, this is what I default to, this is what I like, and I want to keep doing this. I think I'm going to keep doing this. But I just wanted to hear your take on it. Not necessarily that I'm going to apply. I'm curious. And it was actually a very cool, very valuable back and forth, actually, because I realized in the end of the day, we were trying to convey to those who we are teaching a similar sensation. She went from one path, I went to the other path, but we are trying to get to that same sensation. And that's the cool thing, you know? So sometimes in the end of the day, the different methodologies and the different ways of teaching, I think are all trying to convey something similar. The thing is that each teacher found a way to get there. There's one example that I really like, which is this thing of the followers seeking the connection of the hand of the leader on their back. And then I remember there used to be the teaching that you actually, with your back, go into the hand. Or there is the teaching that with your back, you go to the sides and almost like you inflate your back so your back kind of like splashes onto the hand. Or there is the idea that I like to use the most is where we don't seek the connection, we let it come to the body. So you stay in your axis and the hand will come to your body and then it connects. You see that all three of them are aiming to a same sensation, the presence of the connection points. But one of them seeks this way, the other then seeks this way, and the other stays and let the hand come, you know? So I think in the end of the day, it all works. It's just like, you know, whatever works better for you. And in certain situations, you will notice that something feels better than something else. Like Emily was saying here, I realized that this works for me, this doesn't, so I'm going to stick with this thing here. And that's where we open more room for discussion. In this specific example of the hand seeking the back or the back seeking the hand. For example, when sometimes I have danced with people that use the back seeking hand idea, it feels amazing. It feels fine. They don't go off axis. It's not heavy at all. And I have danced with the back seeking the hands where it was too much into the hands, too seeky. And if I took the hand away, or something like, you know, there's some variables that I think are related to the level of awareness of the person applying the technique. I think certain techniques, certain ways of approaching what the body is doing requires more body awareness in order to be done in a way that doesn't throw you off, in a way that doesn't get heavy on the body. And I think that's something that Emily is approaching here. Like, I found a way to use as a default that is easy on the body, so I'm going to stick with it. And the teacher told me something else. I would try this thing, but it might not work for me, maybe because the level of awareness that I have of what my body can do doesn't allow me yet to use that way and have the same sensation that I have when I use this way here or something like that.
And I'll go one step further. I would say 99% of the times that somebody is doing something different from what I would teach, I'll tell them, hey, totally valid. I know that this is a technique that a lot of teachers teach right now, or used to teach, or I used to teach even. There are situations where I will encounter somebody who is doing a technique that I used to use primarily as a default. And then I learned other things about the dance, and then I decided to switch to a different technique. And I'll approach them and say, hey, totally cool. But there's another way that we can do this. And this other way I found that opened this door and this door and this door. So would you be okay trying it out and then see if this works for you? I would say most of the times, it doesn't come to a place where it's right or it's wrong. To me, it's a big turn off when teachers go into explaining something or go into correcting somebody in class and saying, that's wrong, this is right. To me, it's a big turnoff because you're just commending something for me without telling me why and without telling me the difference between one and the other. I had so much problems in school, normal school, like fundamental school, high school, and things like that, because I'm somebody who always thinks about 10 things at the same time. So when the teacher is telling the class, this is how it is, this is how it is, this is how it is, I would put my hand up and say, but why? The other one that we learned last week went from here to there, and this one goes from there to here. What is the relationship? What is the benefit? How does that work? And most of the times, unfortunately, because of the way the educational system works, I would just be shut down. The teacher will tell me that I didn't know what I was talking about, the question made no sense, or that I'm just not paying attention. So if I pay attention, I'll understand. I mean, I don't think that's a teacher's answer, to be honest. A teacher answer should be trying to understand where that question is coming from, trying to understand the experience that that student is having and why the question came in the first place. You know, so if a student is coming to me and telling me that they are very okay with a certain technique, and I go there and I totally don't teach that technique, but I don't see a problem, why would I correct it? Why would I go there and try to change them and say that what they're doing is wrong, what they're doing is not Brazilian Zouk or not whatever dance style that I'm teaching, you know? So that's where I am with things. I would say maybe 1% of the time when it comes to mechanical things in the body or things that can cause injury, that's when I'm going to say, look, this is really not good for your knee, or this is not good for your neck posture. And I wouldn't even go and say, this is not Zouk, or this is not good Zouk technique. I would say, look, as far as I understand about the spine or about your hip, about your joints, or about the way you use your muscles, there's a more efficient and safe way. So would you like to try that out? Like, you know, kind of like living the dance style. Because, bro, like, how many styles of Zouk are there? Like, some people don't like when we say styles of Zouk, but how many teaching ways are out there? How many expression ways? There's hundreds. There's no two laterais that look the same or two basic steps that look the same. But in the end of the day, is what Guy said. And we're a great example of this. You know our history here. We have different approaches to so many things, but the end goal is the same. Yeah, so just trying to focus on that is the way that I would approach in any situation with the students.
Yeah, it's like there are two things, right? There is this idea of style and the idea of proper technique, which is a term actually that we read quite often here.
What is correct? What is right? What is Brazilian Zouk?
Yeah, and what is proper technique? And what is the style, you know? And this is something really interesting. One day, Alex de Carvalho told me his definition of style. And it was really interesting because for him, a different style is when you use a different technique altogether. So for him, there were only three styles. There was Neo-Zouk, there was Lambada, and there was Brazilian Zouk. Because they use different techniques, different ways of using the body.
From the ground up.
From the ground up.
Not just a certain group of movements.
Exactly. And Neo-Zouk, for example, there was a lot of things with joints.
Yes.
Where you use the joints, you don't step the same way.
Different points of contact as well.
Different points of contact. Sometimes not even the basic is clearly, you know, defined.
And it's more, depending on who you're looking at, it's also more counterclockwise than clockwise.
Yeah.
Which is very different from regular Brazilian Zouk that we see in dance.
Really fascinating. Lambada, use the body in a different way. And Brazilian Zouk. So for him, there were 3 styles. And then I liked that definition a lot. And then there's a definition of style that is more broad, which is more the way that you use your body, the way that you express the dance with your body, what you decide to do with your head, with your shoulders, or what kind of movements you decide to make the most. So like what pool of movements are you using the most? So for example, several people come to me in private lessons and they mention my style. Like, oh, because in your style of dancing. And I hear this more with these ears of like, oh, in the choices that you make when you're dancing, the moves that you make when you dance.
Your expression.
My expression when I dance.
Your expression of Brazilian Zouk, my expression of Brazilian Zouk. Exactly. We don't have different styles.
Exactly. It's just more like a different way of using. Alisson knows how to do viradinha. I know how to do viradinha. Maybe I use more viradinha. Maybe I do more often. Maybe I do more kinds. I don't know. It's okay. So we have the idea of the styles and the idea of proper technique that we are talking about. So that's a very complex topic, I think, for me, this idea of proper, because it implies correct. What is the correct technique? In the end of the day, I think as a teacher, over time, I developed my sight to look or to separate two things. There is how something looks like, and there is how something feels like. Sometimes when the teacher is teaching you a way here that you might be trying in class, like Emily talks about here, sometimes it might be related to how it looks like. Sometimes it might be related to the shape that you are creating with your body and your partner's body when doing particular movements. Sometimes it's related to how the movement feels like, or the sensation that we are trying to bring with the movements. So for example, the preparation for the first step in the basic. For many, many years, there was this idea of going up, to go down, to expand, to go back. Okay? And then I started realizing, why are we doing so many things just to take a step back? You know?
Yeah.
So then I realized...
we're nerds.
Yeah. Like, why we're doing so much to just take a step back, man? So then I realized all these things that are being done is to indicate to my partner, look, I am in one leg, my other leg is free. Hey, we are going in this direction. So there's a preparation. So there's a feeling of a complete weight transfer that is highlighted by all these other things that you do in your body. And there's a visual aspect of expansion that gives that particular look of your body getting ready to take one step back and for the follow-on step forward. So then I realized, so there's a visual to it, which is this expansion. And there's a sensation to it, which is a full and complete weight transfer. And an indication that the weight transfer is complete. Let's go, you know. So then I'm like, okay, so there are two things here. Then I decided to focus on the sensation. How can I highlight the sensation of a weight transfer? Not necessarily with the shape aspect of it. And then I would say this way of dancing, this style, started to take shape because it was more pay attention to the sensation of a weight transfer and just that. And what is the minimum that I need to do with my body to shift weight completely? And then it goes to anatomy, body mechanics, all these things that, you know, people like. Detached from the visuals. So one invitation that I make students when listening to the instructor, and then something that I'm telling Emily too. Hi, Emily, if you're listening to this. When you listen to the teacher talking in a technique that you might not identify yourself with, I try to resonate with what is the sensation that they are trying to convey, what is maybe the shapes that they are trying to convey, and also maybe sometimes what is their background as well. So the dancers that come from a background of like dance companies, stage, they will come with an information embedded with all of these elements of the stage, of the dance companies, of the performing aspect of the dance. And then if the teacher is coming from a background that is, for example, only purely social dancing, their information will come a lot with this aspect embedded in it. And there's also, of course, the avatars that come a little bit with both. But when I started seeing the background of the teacher and a lot where the information was coming from, I could connect with the information a lot deeper and a lot more than looking at them with my eyes. I needed to put their glasses on in order to look at the information that they were conveying, maybe from the point of view that they are coming from. And that helped a lot to connect with several ways of seeing the dance.
In conclusion, most of the times from our classes that we know each other's teaching very well, when the student asks a very specific question like, is head movement this? And I'm like, yes, no, maybe sometimes, more or less.
We give the lawyer's answer. Because it depends.
Yeah, because it depends on what we're doing. Sometimes, yes, we have more hip connection. Sometimes we don't need the hip connection. And then so on and so forth. We could go on forever. So most of the times, all can be used, all can be applied in different situations for different reasons, for different music that you're dancing with or partner that you're dancing with, height, body, all of those things. In the end, learn from all of the teachers, learn as much as you can, even from the teachers that may not directly connect with how you like to dance. Learn from them because there will be something there that you can use. And then build your dance over time. Following only one teacher, I don't think that's a good thing. But learning from all of them and having an idea of what's your body type and dance type and expression type, that's what we are always trying to do. And continuously reinventing, continuously reconstructing everything about our dance. So we do hope that this was helpful for you guys. And we'll see you on the next one.
See you next time.
Thank you, Emily. And thank you, guys. Beijos, beijos. Abraços. Tchau.
再见。